Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, we'll get back to a catapult to the offseason via an Independence Bowl win on Saturday. Also, Dynamite inbound, courtesy of the transfer portal for Joey Maguire and the Red Raiders. And back to Fort Worth, where the Red Raiders sent the Commodores back to the beach. Next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to see you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Today's episode brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, at prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. That's daily fantasy sports made easy with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan, kicking off a week, well, in the way that we wanted to kick it off. Still basking in the glow of a finale win in the Independence Bowl and getting set up for a big week with National Signing Day on the horizon and still more portal happenings to happen. And we're also going to include in our conversation here today getting back to Fort Worth on Saturday and a big win for Grant McCaslins and the Red Raiders as they top Vanderbilt in convincing fashion, and a lot to take away from that one, including some more of those little things we've referenced before that the Red Raiders really did well. But Chris, to begin the conversation, we go back to Shreveport, Louisiana on Saturday, and so many things that obviously Texas Tech did very well. Hopefully you have already caught our reaction episode to the game that went up yesterday, that being Sunday. But today, I want to talk just a little bit more about how this can serve as an off-season catapult of sorts. We all know that you didn't have the season overall that you were hoping to, but you did, for all intents and purposes, finish better than you started, and that includes, obviously, the bowl game. And I don't think this is a coaching staff, Chris, that will waste any time in any way, shape, or form as far as getting back to selling. There's nothing better than being able to finish on a high note, Chris. And I think we did find out last year, somewhat differently than off seasons gone by recently, how much a bowl win can do for you. Whether it is an SEC opponent or it is the Cal Golden Bears, you've now got this to add to your pitch. So I don't know what the week will hold for Texas Tech, but I imagine as soon as you're getting back to the phone after a win like that, the calls are happening again, the DMs, the Snapchat. I don't even know what paths they go down now, the fax machine or whatever it is. But you know as well as I do, man, how tough it is whenever you enter an off season and you're kind of drug into the off season. November maybe didn't go like you wanted it to, but we've had the opposite experience for the most part with Joey Maguire, where you've gotten better as the season has gone along. And there's no doubt that, as I said, it does serve as an offensive catapult of sorts, right?
Yeah, I guess technically you're. I want to say this is right. I guess you finish. You're what are you 8-1 to end seasons combined when you tally them up, like a 4-game win streak last year and then a 4 out of 5 kind of deal this year, with the one loss being a team that's going to play the college football playoff at their place in that time slot that you talked about. So
it's an important thing. I'm going to make it an important thing.
And there was many years around here, obviously, where the things were the opposite. You'd start off well, and then you just could not sustain it. And for whatever reason, it's been the opposite in the last 2 years. Now, at some point, you're going to have to figure out a way to start the season better. You're going to figure out a way to get and keep your quarterback healthy and get through September and October still relevant, instead of being behind the 8 ball like you've been the last couple of years, where it's like pretty high sense of urgency in early October, going, "Ooh, we don't have much margin for error now. We used up a few gimmies there." So and I think next year's schedule, 7 home games, and we'll get into, some of that incoming dynamite and all that here in a bit. But your game, I guess theoretically, your game in early September will be a bit easier because of that news. I say easier. It'll be yeah, it's twofold. Either play against or play with, and it's better to play with in this case. But we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, much of your recruiting work is done, like actual recruiting, high school wise. It's been done. I think the portaling it continues, and it just in the last 24 hours, you've seen another one of Tech's offensive linemen enter the portal, and Jacoby Jackson. You still needed more offensive linemen from the portal. I think you'd look at a defensive lineman-ish. We still don't know what Steve Linton's going to do. I mean, there's plenty at play still here, and plenty of more time during the window to enter your name in. But a high school recruiting standpoint, this class has been largely put together for a while, and I think though that to your point about momentum. Yeah, man, it just kind of it's two vibes, and you've been able to ride the positivity of it. The last 3 years heading into an off season, as opposed to if you kind of limp out of Shreveport and have to come home and it's just not as fun and there's no fireworks and trophies with Red Raider flavor going on there. That's not near as much fun. And at some point, man, the higher the pecking order you get in these bowl games or college football playoff, whatever, you're going to lose your last game. Those are the odds. And you hope that that's anytime soon. But, you've been fortunate enough to win 3 in a row. And like I said, man, that's quite the streak because it hasn't happened since early part of Mike Leach's tenure here. And we remember that era fondly.
Yeah, and how you began to build into quite the decade with some of that success you had in 02, 03, 04, which is, I think, the last 3 consecutive bowl win run. And it's amazing, yes, as we talked about last week, one team's going to leave with a losing record, one team's going to leave with a winning record, even though it'll just be by 1. 7-6 feels a lot better than 6-7. And now that you're that winning team, you can see some of those other statistical oddities like, a winning record and this many, yada, yada, yada. Like, yeah, even though it was only about a 20-point difference between a winning and a losing record, we're still going to be pumping that train because you went home a winner. And as you look back on the season, you are looking back at a winning season. But as we get here, and I want to get back to Jacoby Jackson with you coming up in just a moment when we talk Josh Kelly and really put our portal pants on to have that conversation. Okay, National Signing Day, just a few days away. What sometimes is colloquially referred to as early National Signing Day, but it hadn't really been that, I guess, anymore. This is, again, for all intents and purposes, this is the main event, right? If you're not really filling your basket now, you're probably a little concerned about leaving work to do on the other side of the new year.
Yeah, and there's probably a lengthier conversation we can have about the chaos of the December calendar that we've all endured, everybody's enduring, that everybody's starting to kind of speak about. I mean, Chip Kelly and I've seen Chris Kleiman and some others really speaking about the chaos of the calendar. But large in part, all of that is dictated by early signing date for high school kids, which is what everybody wanted. And so it's moved up this calendar, and everything revolves around coaching changes, staff changes, recruiting decisions. I mean, all that, it's all pushed up. Theoretically, I think you let go of Matt Wells as a program when you did in the calendar because of that early signing day kind of bearing down on you. And you wanted to have plenty of time before that date. But this is, and it's still weird to me. I did this for many, many years. It's that first Wednesday in February. There wasn't a whole lot going on other than college basketball. It was kind of a standalone, and you got to kind of play with the college football toy for a little bit after all the bowl games and championships were over with. And it feels like right now it's like, geez. I mean, I remember being at the bowl game in Birmingham, Alabama, I guess was right, when you're playing South Florida, and they've got like a fax machine set up in the hotel because they're there for bowl prep because you're playing on that game. I want to say like December the 22nd or 23rd. And so you had to have all signing day ceremonies and what you're doing on your end of it there at a hotel in Birmingham. So it's just, and think about how many teams are going to be doing the same this Wednesday. But that's you'll sign the bulk of your high school class this week, and it'll be put to bed. I don't think you're saving any spots for, the late period, which is, again, 6 weeks away, I guess, that first Wednesday in February, although you don't want to rule anything out. So, but yeah, you'll put pen to paper with the bulk of your kids here this Wednesday.
Are we still faxing?
I think that's right. I mean, and why it can't be electronic form is beyond me. I don't know. I say
fax
that.
Machine lobbyists, bro. Fax machine lobbyies will not let this die.
I say it's still fax. I gather, but I don't. Maybe surely they've updated it. It's 2023, man. Come on.
There's some fax machine salesman out there so sentimental about it. It's like, no, boys, this is a tradition that will never die. I think
like VCR, man.
That's right. The beta tapes,
DVD player. Yeah. Like, what is this thingy?
Yeah. All right. Always good advice, I think. Just keep your head on a swivel in case of any more surprises to come. And the best way to do that is to stay with us here on Locked On Texas Tech. So make sure you're subscribed, as we'll get further into that as the week progresses. All right. Iron your portal pants. Let's spin around to the transfer portal. First, today's episode brought to you by eBay Motors. And eBay Motors has you covered with everything you need to maintain your vehicle and keep that ride or die ride on the road. Or if you're just looking to elevate your car's game to the next level of performance, they got what you're looking for with roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, superchargers, and accessories of all kinds to fit your style. Whether you're looking for speed, power, or design, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts to perfectly fit what you need. So just head over today to ebay.com/motors, where you're going to always find exactly what you're looking for, and with no risk because of eBay's guaranteed fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit just right every time, or your money back, keeping you burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to keep your ride or die ride on the road and moving your life forward at ebay.com/motors. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions do apply. Let's spin around to the transfer portal, which is a conversation that is still very much ongoing. And obviously you see movement here or there, incoming, outgoing. Before we get to Josh Kelly and one of the biggest additions of this portal cycle, Jacoby Jackson announces his intention following the bowl game to enter the transfer portal. Surprise chart, where are we at, Chris? And I'm wondering, somewhat as a fan, about writing on the wall for Jacoby, given the fact that we're coming off of a week where you got two guards that I guess we're pretty excited about heading to Texas Tech through the transfer portal in the Toledo and Memphis transfers. But how would you set the table for Jacoby's announcement? And did it catch anybody off guard, you think? There's a pun, by the way.
Yeah. Intended. I like it.
Do not pardon that pun. Deal with it.
I don't think anybody internally was very surprised. I think, would you have loved to have had him back for depth purposes? Absolutely. Do you kind of know what you're getting there? Absolutely. Did you recruit over him? Or essentially replace him last week in the starting lineup? Yes, you did. That's your thought anyway. Jacoby would have had a say so in that as well. But your thought is like, we've got to. I just remember having conversations with somebody about this, and they kind of, the indication was, as it relates to offensive line, it was, if we bring anybody in, if we look at anybody in the portal, they have to be better than Jacoby Jackson. That was kind of the bar. If they're not better than him, then we're just not going to do that. We're not bringing in bodies just to whatever. And so there's like this cutoff point. Like, we know what Jacoby can do. He's kind of a solid guy. He's got some injury issues. He can't move real well. And all those things, but he's a good depth piece and all those things. And he's been a starter for you for the back half of the season. I think at times he graded out okay, and at other times it was very poor. But I think, your goal was, when you're talking offensive line, that you wanted to try to be better than, and I think that they feel like they've done that. Now you just hope that, like last year, last season, you don't have an injury, and then then who's this version of Jacoby Jackson that's going to fill in while the Cole Spencer gets hurt, which is what happened this past season. So that's why I say. But again, that's the thing about the portal. Jacoby Jackson's more than free to go see what else is out there if he wants to see what he can. What money is out there, what playing time is out there, what closer to home is out there, whatever. I mean, he is allowed to do that. He's got 2 years to play, but not real surprised by a lot of folks. No.
Some nice measurables, and I always kind of like you alluded to there with the grading out. Sometimes it was okay, sometimes it wasn't great. You look at the body and you're like, man, let's get this dude, get the light to come on and be something for us. And didn't quite get there, but still has a lot of football in front of him. Maybe he will for someone else. Wish him the best. But as Chris described there with some of what you were able to bring into the mix a week ago, you were hoping to improve that personnel, or that you have already improved that personnel. I don't know that I can guarantee anything, but I think we're all feeling pretty darn good, to use an industry term, about improving pass catching personnel, particularly with this most recent addition. This was as exciting, I think, as any get that Texas Tech has gotten so far, and there have been a couple that definitely get your attention. But Washington State wide receiver transfer, you've probably seen by now, Josh Kelly has decided to become a Red Raider. This is the one we've alluded to as far as explosiveness, dynamite, yards after catch, down the field threat, little over 15 yards per catch for Washington State. This will be his 6th season of college football that he's going to be playing in Lubbock. What does it do for the Red Raiders, Chris? And who was Texas Tech fending off for this guy's services? Because he's getting a lot of attention. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here looking at his, some of his numbers from the year. But, he had a long, let's see, in game by game, he had a long catch of 25, one of 32, one of 44, one of 27, 28, 39, 51. You get the idea. But these are just things that we haven't had around here. The thing that I think that, Calvin, you point out is that this is one of the more excitable, additions. I don't know if it's as important as some of these offensive linemen that you already have and you hope to add, because there'll be a lot of players in the mix at receiver with Micah Hudson, who, if he signs and all that. But the thing about Josh Kelly is that he is what I'm going to call a proven commodity. That's the thing. It's like, that's why people are excited about it. He was nearly 1,000-yard pass catcher this past season. He does have a yards per catch average much higher than anybody you had. And this is what ailed you. And I think, he played with the cool connection there is that he played with Braylon Lux at Fresno State. So Josh Kelly is technically a grad transfer, and he spent 3 years at Fresno State. Braylon Lux was there a lot of that time. And I think I'm gathering some, connection there, and hey man, how is it there? Hey dude, show up. That they're going to treat you right, and we got it. And number 2 can sling it. Who knows what that conversation goes, or how it went. But that's one of the connections. And like I said earlier in the show, I mean, now that you're playing Washington State, they're not as easy to. Braylon Lux would have been like, well, I'm glad you're on my team now, because now I don't have to cover you. I can come up, try to cover some other, slap that they tried out there instead of you.
Yeah, the DBs are the best recruiters. It is very important you come here, please, after that game announcement.
Yes, absolutely. He got a lot of Pac-12 and SEC, and I think some Big 12 interest.
Did he wind up taking a Notre Dame visit, or was that just a rumor?
And I think that there was I think let's put it this way, very strong rumor. How about that?
Okay.
Did I see him with boots on the ground in South Bend, Indiana? No. But I think it was widely reported that, strong indications were that he did make that visit. But yeah, he was, and this is what we're seeing too, is that, because here's what's fascinating a bit, is that, have you seen anything out there about Miles Price or Jerron Bradley, or because the wide receiver market, because that's what it is. It's like these position groups. It's like my market. The offensive line market it started moving fast last week. The wide receiver market a bit slower, but there's a lot of them to choose from. Kind of like the quarterback market too. So quarterbacks are starting to make some decisions, and then with each decision that gets made, it kind of starts to, domino a bit, because then spots start running out, and it's like, well, we don't have a starter yet, but we just got our starter, and then away we go. But receivers, it was a bit slower, and so, but I think Texas Tech jumped on Josh Kelly immediately, and really, I think the Braylon Lux thing is very real, and I think they see some speed and elusiveness, and I think that's exactly what because Caleb Douglas and now Josh Kelly to go along with Micah Hudson, and heck, and then you add Coy Aiken and Dre McCray and Jordan Brown and Brady Boyd. I mean, with what you saw in the bowl game, possibly Loic Fungi, it's just a much different, faster, twitchier group, and Micah Hudson may be the best of all of them. Even though he doesn't have 1,000-yard season like Josh Kelly does, he is coming. It is him. How about
that? Yeah, we got one cat who has not taken a college snap yet.
He's from the Himalayas. Yeah, I don't know what else
when smoke appears on the western horizon, you will know that the time has arrived. We got one dude that hadn't taken a snap on the college level, and one dude about to play his 6th year on the college level, and I am, I would say, almost equally as excited about both, and both hopefully will be nightmares for opposing defenses. Before we get to Coach McCaslin and the Hoops team really quickly, I'm just curious. I know, again, we can't guarantee anything to put to bed. Skill position portal recruiting. Is this close to over? I mean, we got a handful of tight ends, got a couple of wide receivers now in the mix. We've got a backup quarterback or some depth pieces of quarterback now in the mix. Do you see that part of the portal conversation coming to a close, and it's more offensive line, defensive front focus, or what do you think there is left possibly there?
Yeah, you've added, I guess you've added 3 tight ends and 2 wideouts. Added a QB. As far as running back goes, I think it's directly tied to Cameron Valdez. If he returns, I think no.
Yeah.
If he does in fact leave for greener pastures, I think one in, or one out, one in kind of philosophy that you would replace him or look to. And it's tricky because the timing of everything here, because a person could, keep their name in the portal and all that, and then you may not be able to replace them, and then the timing may get wonky to where there's not a lot of options to replace them. So that's kind of the dance that everybody's going through too on some of these guys, where you almost have to say, hey man, if you're staying, you're gonna have to take your name out, so we know and all those things. But I think that, to answer your question, that's really the only skill position. And again, assuming that things are the way they are now, because right. I think you were looking to take 1 to 2 offensive linemen in the portal still. Now with Jacoby Jackson's entrance into the portal, I think now that number goes up to 2 to 3, because you now have a new scholarship available. So I think, and I think to your point about defensive line, Steve Linton's future, I just think if you found the right big person, you would make it work. Even if you had to take a spot or scholarship from, one other position, because there's best available out there, you can get him, you know what I mean? So, we still got some portaling to do for sure. So
make sure you're subscribed so you miss nothing.
My portal pants are ironed up and good to go.
Oh, man. And maybe after a couple of Christmas meals, it'll be a good thing to have an elastic waistband on those bad boys as things continue to grow. Okay, stay with us this week, as you never know what is still to come as far as that goes on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Chris, let's wrap up our conversation going back to Fort Worth. You were on the call for this one as Grant McCaslin and the Red Raiders wash the Commodores ashore. How many more sea-related puns are in store for this program? Wait and find out. I got a bag full. 76-54. The final score was only an 8-point halftime lead for Texas Tech. It had a bigger margin through some various points in the first half. Vanderbilt closed the gap a little bit. Kind of wondered, all right, we got to make a real game out of this. No, would wind up as a 22-point margin for the Red Raiders as they outscored Vanderbilt by 14 in the final 20 minutes. And This was actually kind of a statistically pretty game for Texas Tech. You've had some of those that weren't all that pretty, aside from maybe some detail-esque kind of categories. But you shot the basketball pretty well, 26 for 53 on the day, 56% beyond the arc. Texas Tech went 9 for 16. We even saw Pop Isaacs looking a little more comfortable as far as some shots falling for him, as he led the Red Raiders with 19 points, 3 for 7 from beyond the arc. And I can't remember if I heard you point this out or who I saw point this out, but 22 assists on 26 made field goals, man. That's cooking with peanut oil, as they say out in Spade, Texas. So what was standing out to you that you really liked leaving this win for the Red Raiders?
Yeah, and there was a you controlled this game throughout, but there was a time early in the second half. You mentioned that 8-point halftime lead, and probably Jerry Stackhouse probably got after his guys at halftime. Well, they come out with a lot of energy. They cut the lead to 4, and you're thinking, man, you've controlled this whole game, but here it is, a 4-point game, and if they get a stop, I mean, they're close to getting this thing tied up or threatening to take the lead. And so you had a 4-point lead at that point, and then over the next minute, 27 seconds, you go on a 7-0 run, and you balloon that lead back up to 11. And at that point, that's when Vanderbilt was like, "Coach, this is too hard." Like we almost, and it's just too hard. And so then you just start playing good ball. And yeah, I thought there's several things in this one. We can talk about it some tomorrow and leading into this UTA game on Thursday, which is a day game, mind you. But they're doing a really good job of sharing the basketball. I think Grant talked a lot about how quicker they are subbing now, and maybe getting into more subs. He played 9 guys in this game, although Kerwin Lindsay only played a minute and a half. But I think you're starting to maybe identify how to use Robert Jennings, how to use Lamar Washington, and certainly Chance McMillan's going to play a ton. Chance McMillan, though, he was a big reason for that 7-0 run early in the half and just kind of the second half in general. He scores all 14 of his points in the second half. Jeff Haxton and I were on the broadcast, and we said, you have got to get something from Darion Williams or Chance McMillan or both. Something if you're going to win this game or hold the Commodores off. And then McMillan just kind of went crazy, and he carried it and scored a ton in that second half. And that's what I think was able to, and again, you just controlled it. And it was a great crowd, fun venue. I hope you play there again at some point soon, but that was a solid win to improve your record to 8-2.
And Kerwin Walton continues his assault on the statistical book. He was a double-digit scorer, but it was more his transformation into Dikembe Mutombo that was getting my attention. I don't know who is lighting the fire there. I'm going to credit Coach McCaslins and his staff for a lot of that. Credit Kerwin Walton as well. But this is just I'm getting antsy, Chris. I'm getting antsy for Big 12 play. You got 3 games between you and conference play, and it's because I want to see what you really are going to be whenever you're back to business in the best basketball league in the country. Because I don't know how else to describe it. I just still feel like Coach McCaslins and his staff are coaching these guys up. I don't know if you're talented enough to really make a lot of noise or deep enough to make a lot of noise in the Big 12 conference, but I feel like the coaching staff is getting as much as they possibly could out of this roster to this point in time. And I just as far as it pertains to the future and a bigger picture, not even necessarily just this season, I'm excited about that. I like what I'm seeing from the guys on the sideline.
I think you nailed it. Yeah. Problems are around the corner. Adversities around the corner. There's just no doubt. TCU has watched them some from the other night. They're really good. They've got so many of their guys back. They're really old. They're healthy. It just on and on it goes. I was trying to look at that first part of the conference season. I mean, and you play Texas initially in Austin. I mean, there's going to be some where you just look up. You're going to have to beat the Central Floridas, the Cincinnatis, the West Virginias, maybe like the Iowa States or, and then win some of the, Oklahoma State. You're going to have to win a lot of those games to kind of hang in there because the top half of the league is just Kansas is the top team in the country, without a doubt. But you're right. Grant's squeezing everything he can out of them, and I think that staff is, and they're taking care of the ball. These players are better versions of themselves than I think we've seen previously, and it's starting to improve. And you've dealt with a major blow with Devin Cambridge not being there. That's what I really am frustrated about is what was this thing going to look like had you had all your bullets in your gun, and it's just not. It wasn't in the cards. Just like football season was last year. What would it look like if you just keep the quarterback healthy? We'll never know. I feel like we may never ever know. Like often, into the future. So, but yeah, we'll keep talking about some hoops and things like that and some specifics. But yeah, Kerwin, man, salute, young man. He says nothing. He's just pouring them in. He had a one BS foul call on him that kind of took him out of rhythm in the game early, and but he sat on the bench for a little while and kind of got out of rhythm, but he came back in and was heavily affected this game and in such a way that I think helped them win for sure.
Yeah, and shout out to Pop Isaacs. Got the scoring going early, but that 7-to-1 assist to turnover ratio is worthy of some attention as well. So we'll be circling back to hoops. As Chris mentions, you got a 1:00 tip-off coming up later in the week as UTA comes to town. Chris, appreciate the time and insight as always, man. Enjoyed it, and we'll do it again tomorrow.
Head, swivel, attach it, be ready. Keep hope alive, everybody. Enjoyed it. We'll be here all week.
Make sure you're limbered up and subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks for joining us. We hope to see you back here for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.